We're going to talk about the worst nuclear explosion that ever happened in the world history. It happened in 1986 in Chernobyl, Ukraine. This catastrophe happened mainly because the reactor was not made by the hands of experts. The steam of explosion released about 4 to 5% of the reactor's score to the atmosphere. The city was closed for about 20 years until the government reopened the city until 2006 for tourism.
My name is Andres Chapa and I will be explaining the basic exponential function graph. Hello everyone, I will explain the exponential function graph. Let's start with the basic formula of the exponential function, which is f of x equals b to the power of x, and over here b is representing a base, which is b will always be less than 0 and not equal to 1, and x is representing an exponent. The reference point of this graph is 0, 1, as you can see in here. The domain is negative infinite to positive infinite, and that will always stay the same. And the range of the basic graph is from 0 to positive infinite, but that could change depending on the equation. And this graph would either reflect an increase or decrease rate depending on the concavity of the graph. In this basic graph there is an increasing rate due to a concavity that is up, as you can see in here. Well, that's all. Thank you.
The Great Depression was the greatest economic recession in the 20th century. The stock market crashed in 1929, so that impulses the start of this depression. That means that all the money, or the majority of it, that a normal person got into a bank will disappear, just like they never had earned it. Many people got into the depression or committed suicide. Now, we just explained how does putting money in a bank works. I could say that I got 10,000 pesos in a bank account, and the bank gives me 8% of the interest rate. So if you want to know how many money will you get in 5 years, from now on I will use this equation. Q of f is equals to Q of I times 1 plus the rate that we have, elevated to the number of years that it will include from now on. So this means that if you multiply the initial quantity with the rate plus 1 elevated to the number of years, you will get the final answer.
Situation number 2. Mexico's earthquake of September 19, 2017. An estimated magnitude of 7.1 and lasted about 20 seconds. This was a clear example of an exponential growth in the Richter scale, since it got at 5.5. To calculate an exponential growth within the Richter scale, which is an exponential scale that uses power of 10 to compare the magnitude of size of earthquakes, we have to use this formula. M is equal to log A plus 3 log of A pi t minus 2.92. A is meaning the amplitude, and P pi t the time lag between the fast-moving compression waves.
What is exponential growth? What is a function in the graph models that represent it, and what are their main characteristics? The exact definition of exponential growth, whose rate becomes ever more rapid in proportion to the growing number or size. The function in graph is to represent either an increasing or decreasing rate depending on the equation. The basic exponential function graph is f of x equals b greater than x. B is representing a base where b is less than 0 and is not equal to 1. The x is represented an exponent. The reference point includes 0, 1. The domain is infinite to infinite. The range of the basic graph is from 0 to infinite. This reflecting either a increase or decrease rate depending on the concavity of the equation. Exponential decay is the opposite from exponential growth. It decreases at the rate proportional to its current value. What do you think and feel about these consequences? What would be a solution proposal for this situation? We think the consequences are too big for the means. Nuclear weapons and energy harvesting should not be illegal. The accidents that could happen would mean on a catastrophic level. A solution could be making the nuclear weapons illegal and prohibiting the use of nuclear plants all over the world. What are the environmental consequences of the nuclear disasters and use of nuclear weapons? There are several environmental consequences. One of them is the spread of radioactivity in about 200,000 kilometers squared. Radioactive iodine can contaminate agricultural plants, animals, and people in places nearby. The production of agriculture would stop for about 2 months because of the big amount of radioactivity. Oceans and rivers would also get damaged and contaminated. What are the implications of using nuclear energy? Do you consider nuclear energy to be clean energy? In theory, nuclear energy is clean energy because it doesn't release CO2 gases to the atmosphere. The gases that you see leaving the reactor is water vapor. If you use nuclear energy in a good way, you'd use it as an energy source. On the other side, it can cause an accident and release radioactive waste as it did in Chernobyl. Are you aware that there is a nuclear energy plant in Mexico? Where is it? Do you think it's safe? Do you agree with the fact that there is a nuclear energy plant in your country? Yes, we know of the nuclear energy plant in Mexico. The power plant is in Laguna Verde, Veracruz, and we agree with having nuclear power plant in our country as long as it receives a proper maintenance and can be used in good means. Could the Chernobyl 1986 nuclear disaster have been prevented? How? Once explosion happened, was there any way to stop the radiation spread and its pollution? Do you think that the radioactive pollution generated by this disaster reached Mexico? What are at least 4 environmental consequences of the Chernobyl 1986 disaster? Yes, the Chernobyl accident could have been prevented according to a professor of process control at Yale named Bela Lipak. Automation safety regulations could have prevented the Chernobyl accident. No, once the explosion started, there was no way of undoing what started. Yes, radiation did not stop at Ukraine, it reached the whole world. Some places were more affected than others. What do you think and feel about these consequences? What would be a solution proposal for this situation? We think the consequences are too big for the means. Nuclear weapons and energy harvesting should not be illegal. The accidents that could happen would mean on a catastrophic level. A solution could be making the nuclear weapons illegal and prohibiting the use of nuclear plants all over the world.